Hey everyone, my name is Miles Tost and I'm a level designer at CD Projekt Red working on Cyberpunk 2077.
Hey guys, we're here at A3 Los Angeles. I'm Gabriel from Cerealkillerz. So let's start with the first question. You talked about in the presentation about a fluid class system. Could you go into detail with that? What you're trying to achieve in Cyberpunk?
Yeah, a little. I can go into it a little. So basically our idea is that instead of just having one class, the player will be able to choose a mixture of abilities that fall into archetypes, if you will. So internally we're designing levels thinking that the player can be either a strong solo, a fast solo, a netrunner, or a techie. And we are designing abilities around these archetypes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the player, in reality, will be able to combine any of these to kind of make their own class and fulfill their own class fantasy. Now, as to how this actually will work, we're still not ready to share that in detail, but I can tell you a bit about our design philosophy behind it, because if we think Cyberpunk, there's a lot of different kind of fantasies that the player should be able to approach. Are you more like Deckard from Blade Runner, a sort of detective kind of person that is able to punch people really hard as well, but uses a pistol, right? I guess that would be more of a solo archetype if we think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Or are you more of a I'll say geeky character? Maybe you just are more sneaky, netrunnery. You want to hack things, right? Or maybe you're even entirely different and you want to play more into a role of someone who dabbles with hardware, who's able to dismantle machinery, pieces back together if need be, or you want to combine any of these fantasies.
Okay. I think what most people surprised was the decision to make it first person.
Mm-hmm.
Could you go into detail with that? Why?
Yes. So at CD Projekt Red, we've always been making RPGs. That's kind of our thing. And we really want to make the best RPGs out there. That, RPGs, I'm talking that are able to draw the player in and keep them interested, where you almost feel like you're there. And so choosing first-person perspective really made a lot of sense for us. It was not a decision we made lightly on a whim, because, all right, let's try first person, right? No. We've been experimenting for a long time with this, and ultimately found that for the stories we want to tell with Cyberpunk, this works a lot better. And we've been doing a lot of stuff to help this, and that only works with the first-person perspective, such as our new dialogue system, the way we do cutscenes, generally our combat implementation, the platformy bits with double jump and wall run that you can do, right? They will be all much, much harder, if not impossible, to really pull off in third person. And this sort of our attempt to help bring the first-person perspective back to the RPG genre.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. So, back to maybe Witcher. Is there like a ground concept you took from Witcher to Cyberpunk, or anything you learned from Witcher that you could use for Cyberpunk?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, Witcher 3 was really our first time that we've done an open world game, and let me tell you, we've learned a lot from that. Like things, not only that when it comes to how to design an open world, but also how to optimize one, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Witcher 3, we noticed we had to basically iron out a lot of kinks when it came to implementation of our meshes into the world. How do we make sure that over long distances we can still see stuff? Our crowd and community systems were good, but they weren't where they needed to be to really bring alive the world in the way that we can see it in Cyberpunk, right? Mm-hmm. You've seen the demo,
yeah,
right? So take for example the moment when we get out of the mega building and onto the streets and you see all of these people. That what you see there is a direct result of what we learned from Witcher 3. Mm-hmm. And we've basically greatly enhanced our community and crowd systems to be able to display this many NPCs in the world without it feeling weird or cheap, so we can actually make a city that feels like a city and not just a game place.
Let's stay on the open world point. Is it like, let's say, different chapters or different points of the car of the whole map, or is it really open world that's tied together, like continuing in?
Right. I mean, with the exception of fast travel, which we're still unsure or not, still experimenting with how to actually implement it, there will be no loading screen. So you'll basically be traveling one huge plane of existence. And yeah, I mean, you've seen it in the demo. Like, the Night City is huge. You'll be able to freely explore it around, even go into interiors, and never in there will you be faced with a loading screen unless you're fast traveling. That's what I'm trying to say.
So, in terms of romance, I mean, romance was a big part in Witcher 3. Can we expect to romance some characters or build a relationship with some of them?
Absolutely. I mean, this time around it's even a bit more liberal, if you will, because you get to choose your own character, right? You can make your own character straight from the get-go. And since we're not based on a source material that requires certain characters to be in a certain way, like you're not tied to be Geralt of Rivia, we'll also be able to feature non-heterosexual relationships. Now, why we have this is very simple. Like, generally, we're making a game for a mature audience that's based on a world that should be believable and still rooted in our world, just of course exaggerated to the max in some ways. And I almost lost my trail of thought. Right, and part of this is actually to provide these experiences of being able to romance and forge friendships with other characters. Now, Cyberpunk 2077's Night City is a very, very dangerous and oppressive place, so it's only natural that the oppressed try to come together, even if only briefly.
Yeah. We saw a car in the demo. Are there going to be different vehicles, or what are your plans in terms of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So for now, we've confirmed that you'll be able to drive different cars and also motorbikes and whatever else we can come up with that we find cool. Again, keep in mind this is like the first time we're doing cars and vehicles, right? So we're still learning and putting our best into it. It's the same thing with the FPS experience, right? FPS, I say. We're not supposed to say FPS simply because it is not a first-person shooter, but it is really a full-fledged role-playing game that has first-person shooter elements, right?
Yeah.
Basically, the only thing it shares with shooters is the fact that the way you do combat mostly is shooting, but even there, we have a melee combat system. We feature lots of different melee weapons that the player can interact with, and the shooter part takes a big step back. I just need to add that before I continue. So what I was saying is that we're doing that for the first time. We're doing cars for the first time. But I think this is actually really cool for us because, of course, there's sometimes during development we make mistakes that others have already made, right, and learn from. But on the other hand, we make some new discoveries. Right, so it's almost like it's our virgin flight on these systems, and we kind of figure out new ways to do it that some people haven't thought of, just because we're willing to experiment, since we don't know how else to do it really, right? And part of that is definitely the emergence of our new dialogue system. As you see, it's fully gameplay driven. You just walk around, you look at things, and people notice you looking at things, etc. Yeah.
So maybe as last question, what would you say is the most exciting part, or your personal most exciting part that Witcher fans or old school CD Projekt fans should look forward in Cyberpunk?
All right, I think at least that's what we're trying to do. And I know it sounds very cocky, but we've always been about big ambitions. Shoot for the stars, really. I think this is really the next step for RPGs. The way the game is coming together is super nice. It's as a developer, it's absolutely wonderful to see, to be able to bring the demo out and show it to people and get the reactions and see that, what you've been cooking up the last 5 years, it actually is working. It's not just theory and experimentation anymore. People dig it, they understand it, right? And especially how we're able to tell our stories on a completely different level using this first-person perspective and the new systems we have. I'm very excited about.
Okay. Thank you for your time. It was great.
You're welcome. Anytime, man.